Native Americans were reclassified as black, Negro, and colored in the first U.S. Census in 1790. Plecker also threatened anyone who put Indian on their birth certificate. So they were threatened, whether it be with incarceration or threatened their life. But they were threatened that they could not call themselves Indian or whatever tribe that is that they came from. They had to be reclassified as black, Negro, and colored. And for you to do that, you'd have to have a little bit of knowledge that this is to your best interest as a people. And he did that to, he threatened them people. Walter Plecker was a very important history. Also, I want to note that one of these Negroes, if they mix with the whites, mixed with white or half or whatever it is, that they also could pass for Spanish or any other tribe in Israel. So definitely you don't want to trust in any brother. You definitely want to do the knowledge yourself, because we have a manipulation coming from these Negro Indians. A few images of Negro Indians. When you get to the Choctaw, this is a Negro Indian from the lower Alabama area. This video I watched, this it says even Secretary of War Henry Dearborn regarded the Choctaws as the most powerful nation of Indians. This woman has said that she was given the knowledge by her parents that she's a full-blooded Choctaw, and that they are indeed a very strong people. The people that I speak of are not a weak nation as far as physical attributes. These people are strong. This is a nation of Negroes where you're getting a lot of your sports athletes, your LeBron James, your Ray Lewis, a lot of your so-called cooned out Negroes that have consented with the beast and are for the beast system are coming out of these Negroes. They're the Choctaws. This is a Yuki Indian of Georgia, Y-U-C-H-I. I got this from an Instagram guy. One of my followers or friends on Instagram knows that he's a Yuki Indian, and as you can see a little bit from his profile image, he's a Negro. And here he put my tribe on there, so they know who they are. And a lot of them are waking up to the fact that they're the Danites. When you go into the Bible, because a lot of this history isn't even being taught to some of the Negroes in these camps, but behind the scenes they know these things. I found the Treaty of Dancing Rabbit Creek to be informative also. Right here it says, by the 1831 Treaty of Dancing Rabbit Creek, those Choctaw who chose to stay in the newly formed state of Mississippi were one of the first major non-European ethnic groups to become U.S. citizens. And it speaks of Article 8 in 1817 with the Cherokees also, who are black. During the American Civil War, the Choctaw in both Oklahoma and Mississippi mostly sided with the Confederate States of America. They said the Confederacy suggested it would support a state under Indian control if it won the war. So they definitely gave them certain perks and certain rewards, promised them rewards if they would side with the Confederacy. And both the Oklahoma and Mississippi Choctaws sided with the Confederate States of America, which is how you can get a Negro representing the Confederate flag. Also, I wanted to note that Oklahoma and Mississippi are two of their major habitations, as well as Alabama in the deep south of Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, as I just showed, the Yuki Indians, Arkansas, and Louisiana. These are major habitations. Also, I found Tennessee, Memphis, and along the East Coast. As I read before, they were running from other tribes, regional tribes also they had war with when the white man came over here, and they sided with them, which is one of the reasons why I feel, or I believe that many of them were pushed to the East Coast and to the South, and not into the mainland in the heart of the American land. Right here also says the 19th century historian Horatio Cushman thought the Chickasaws, along with the Choctaw, may have had origins in present-day Mexico and migrated north. It says that theory does not have consensus. Archaeological research, as noted above, has revealed the peoples had long histories in the Mississippi area and independently developed complex cultures. Found that important because you'll find the Olmec antiquities also have Negroid features. Not to say that the Aztecs didn't have Negroid features also before the Spanish Inquisition, but definitely this could have some kind of weight to it, to the fact that these Negroes actually also were in Mexico. And also I found history where it stated that they were in Haiti and in the Caribbean also. There's the Carib Indians. The Carib Indians also are Negro Indians who are part of the Dan tribe. And we know that they're not the so-called Jamaicans from the slave trade or any other Caribbean Negro from the slave trade, because they were indigenous. That's the difference between knowing the Danite tribe and the slave trade, is the indigenousness of the people and who was brought here in slave ships. These are Choctaws here. The Lawson family, full-blooded Choctaw Indian. These also came from the 1828 definition of American site. Ida Lawson, Ida Danielle Lawson, or Daniel Lawson, Choctaw Indian, Louisiana. Okay, this is also important in understanding that the Choctaws are black people. It says the WPA slave narratives were narratives that contained more than 25 interviews of black people who spoke of their lives as Cherokee, Creek, Choctaw, and Chickasaw Indians. Their language, burial customs, and diet were formulated by the native culture into which they had been born, lived, and eventually died. The U.S. government had hired unemployed writers to travel America during 1936 and 1938, recording ex-slaves and their stories. Okay, so the government hired writers to go speak to interview Negroes from the slave trade, and found out that some of these Negroes that they had interviewed were Cherokee, Creek, and Choctaw Chickasaws, all blacks. So Washita native, these are Choctaw Indians, and they know this. They know that they're black. These are a lot of Negro Indians that know that they're black. Excuse me, a lot of black Indians that know that they've been integrated. This is a Shinnecock Indian. This is very important to understand that the Shinnecock Indians of eastern Long Island, as I've stated before, there's a lot of folly in this camp system, and a lot of it originates in New York City. And as you'll see here, this Shinnecock Indian of eastern Long Island is Negro. He looks like he could be related to maybe the Paul Pierce basketball player or something. He definitely could be called Negro. You'd think of him as Negro if he wasn't in Indian gear. Right here you see a cooned out Negro, what you would think to be as a coon, but really he has knowledge of who he is and is a part of the Black Boule. It says, "I don't give a damn about slavery." Steve Harvey, a quote by Steve Harvey. The black community here in America labeled him as a coon, and it upset him a little bit because he has a knowledge of history, and a lot of the people that was calling him coon has knowledge of history and knows that his people are definitely don't care nothing about the slave trade. Now, if he cares nothing, a Negro that cares nothing about the slave trade, which of the two Negroes do you think he comes from? Now, would you think that Steve Harvey comes from the slave trade Negro or the Negro Indian who actually owned slaves? And if, by his consenting with the beast, and as he even had a little meeting with Donald Trump, that shows and proves that he's part of the allies of the American people, of the so-called white man. Also here I want to go into the Boule. As I've mentioned that Steve Harvey is part of the Boule. It's the Black Skull and Bones. The Boule is a black elite secret society that runs black neighborhoods in accordance to the CIA's plans. The Boule recruits top blacks from American society into its ranks. Blacks who join the Boule are given special privileges and perks. Anywhere they are prominent professional blacks, chances are they're in the Boule. Members of the Boule are called archons, a word for demons in Gnosticism. To capture their souls, homosexual trysts are encouraged as initiation rites. This keeps archons enslaved to the satanic elite power structure. So somewhat extortion, they kind of force a homosexual boyfriend, hidden boyfriend behind the scenes on some of these Black Boule Skull and Bones members to get them to do exactly what is in accordance to the CIA's plan. So you can never go back on the things that you did because we're going to bring out the fact that you got a faggot boyfriend in the closet. So they definitely know how to keep their slaves in order. Right here it says sellouts. We are a black secret society that helps the white man keep our people at the bottom. They're only known as sellouts because because all Negroes have been integrated as being called black, but they have knowledge. These secret societies have a lot of knowledge of what's going on, the knowledge of exactly who we are, who the real Jews are, and who they're not, who are the descendants of the real Jews and who are not. I mentioned before the Powhatans. This is Chris Brown. Just found out I'm the Paw Monkey Indian. I'm from the Paw Monkey Indian tribe. Wow, that's awesome. Paw Monkeys are the same as the Powhatan peoples, the descendants of Pocahontas and Powhatan. These are Negroes. As Negro as Chris Brown. Okay, so I want to go not just in some of this history, but some of the precepts also that contain these things. But before I do that, I want to go into a small little video that I shared on my Facebook page of another Choctaw Indian who would be labeled as a so-called African-American rapper. But really, this man knows his history and knows who he is and knows who whose lineage he falls under.
I'm in New Orleans. This our culture. You know, the Indians, we're going crazy right now, man. I'm representing Big Chief right now. You know what I'm saying? It's like a sacred thing. I definitely appreciate them for letting me do this and get out here and do this in my community. This music video is called "It's a Jungle Out Here," which is real. You know, we lost a lot of soldiers out here, and this record, this like one of my favorite records. And to be able to do this at home with my people, you know, we're just gonna go crazy. We're gonna turn all the way up and show y'all what it's about.
This is what we live in, the jungle down here, and we just represent. It get better with time, baby.
Yeah.
Make them say, yeah.
We out here going crazy right now. I'm about to put my crown on right now, so y'all gonna see the video. I told y'all, it's not about listening to the music, it's about seeing the music. I'm the first hip-hop artist to do this. I know Beyonce did her thing on the R&B side, but I'm talking about 18 songs, all visual. And I had to stop everything I did to come home to do this at home. You know what I'm saying? And I got the real Indians with me, man. We going crazy right now.
You know, he's calling the real Indians.
Yeah, man, I told y'all, you ain't never seen nothing like this. This is how we get out in New Orleans.
Definitely something. The Mardi Gras Indians are Negro Indians of the Choctaw tribe and are the tribe of Dan. Another video from my Facebook page I posted is of a different Negro Indian who the world knows as ODB.
These were tough neighborhoods, but there were also places where his family had been for countless generations. In fact, Dirty could trace his lineage back to a time when there was no New York City, just the wilderness of North America. He was 1/4 Shinnecock Indian.
Then he started mentioning things that y'all didn't understand. He said he got his grandfather Cuffy, Chief Cuffy. Let me take you to Chief Cuffy. Him and his brothers, Fred Cuffy and them, they were some wild boys back in the day.
My great-grandfather was an Indian chief, Shinnecock, from the Shinnecock Reservation in Long Island, Riverhead. That's where my mother met my father in Long Island. Dirty just carried his heritage to the limit, you know. We're Indians. I say, and they used to say, yeah, we're Indians, we sold Manhattan. I said, well, listen, they sold Manhattan for trinkets. So he always said, well, we're going to try to get it back. I said, Rusty, please. We're not getting it back, so forget it.
The Indian is sold Manhattan to the white man, my grandfather. Step up, they did not write the fuck out. Come to the fuck out.
The gold arena with the bulllight in the street. That Wall Street, you might mean Wall Street, the wall is built there. Keep the Indians behind one end of the wall, while the Dutchmen came in, controlled their business on the other side of the wall.
He gave a little bit of history right there on the Wall Street. The rest of the video goes in showing that his grandfather who sold Manhattan to the white man, Old Dirty Bastard's grandfather, who ODB would be considered a so-called African American, as the woman said that he represented his heritage to the fullest. He said that he's Indian, that the Shinnecock Indians. He said they sold Manhattan for trinkets. Even his descendants, even the descendants of the people that sold Manhattan for trinkets are admitting to what they have done. They sold it for almost nothing to the so-called white man. And that Old Dirty Bastard claims that that's his grandfather, which is very much true because these Negro Indians have been concerned with the beast and were a part of the Confederate cause and still today are their faithful allies. Now I want to maybe go into a couple more images before I go into the precepts, because there's a lot of precepts that go over what I just mentioned. All of the history and all of the things that I just went over is also biblical. So I want to find a few more very informative images showing and proving that we have Negroes among us who own slaves and were very strong people who were actually in history the Spartans in history. I found this important. Let me see. Okay, I'm not going to go over this part right here with the Chickasaws, but they definitely did have black slaves and Indian masters. These, as I read before, that it says here in the Native American South that the Choctaw and Chickasaws did own slaves. As you see, these camp Negroes, A lot of them know that they're the Negro Indians, and they know exactly who they are. They know who them